Good evening and welcome to our October 22nd school committee meeting. I don't have a chairperson's update. I did want to ask everyone on the committee just to make sure we silence our phones, even like the buzzing. I think we were getting some feedback a couple meetings ago. So I know we all have children and we have jobs, but if we can at least try to keep our phone usage to a minimum during the meetings, that would be good. And I think that was all I had. Any members from the public who would like to come up and speak? Hearing none? Okay. We don't have an educational report, do we?
Nope.
You looked ready to go, and I was like, I don't think we do.
Jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead. We're going to move right on to general business tonight. We're going to start off with our capital planning update.
Okay. All right, so we just have a follow-up to the discussion, the initial discussion that we had 2 weeks ago about capital planning. Well, I'll tell you where we're at. Historically, we went over what we've received. Last year, we received $271,000 for capital funding. $271,000 is a lot of money when you think about that 600,000 square feet of school space we have, 6 different buildings. It equates to having a 3,000 square foot home and investing $1,300 in it in terms of maintenance. $1,300, at least in my house, doesn't go very far at all. So in terms of the capital reality that we're faced with, we talked at the last meeting how, well, we call it a plan. What it really is simply a list that we try to prioritize, and we try to squeeze everything in a 5-year window. It's not realistic at all. If you get, let's say, $271,000, you're not going to be able to make much of a dent into an $8 million, basically pile of capital needs. I handed out a list, which we have not prioritized yet. It's just to give you kind of a sense of what all those projects that are on our plate, what they are. None of them should be a surprise. They've been on our plates for years. We basically put it in the context of that 5-year plan. Our next step is to prioritize those items. We will put more context with those, as we've done in the past with our plan. And I think instead of calling it a plan, we'll just basically have a capital list, if you will, of all the different projects with our belief in what that priority should be. Sometimes we'll have things that might be not super high on the priority list, given everything, but either a grant comes up, like something happens that might push us to prioritize it. Those windows were super important to us, but obviously they took on even greater importance when we knew we could get a grant to cover over half the cost at North Street. So in terms of the biggest, most pressing needs that we have are paving. That's a super easy one an easy can to kick down the road, and it's been kicked down many, many times. We need to address the South Grafton playground, the North Grafton Elementary School driveway, and that lot on the left, that when you first drive in and you go by those moonlight craters, that's the biggest problem.
Can I ask you a question, Jay?
Of course.
Just out of curiosity, does that $253,000, which actually sounds like a really small number, all things considered, does that allow us to do in-depth repairs, or is that sort of a lick and a promise?
It would allow us to fully repave that South Grafton Elementary School playground.
Okay.
That's not just like a surface coat. If you've been there, you've seen they have like multi-inch gaps. I mean,
Yes.
kids' sneakers.
I'm
can
just
fit
wondering
in.
how much underneath needs to be done, and can we do
I
that?
believe the whole thing would
Okay,
need to be
great.
ripped up. We did talk about just today. We talked about like top coating, and Tony
Yeah.
knows a lot about it. Which
Yeah.
he'll come to the next meeting. He said that it really it's beyond that.
Okay.
North Street, if you've been there in the winter, you've gone over kind of the moguls. Those are what we would address. And again, that 253,000. So if we took what we had last year and put it only towards paving, we could basically just knock off those projects. We have 2 roof sections pretty much the entire roof. It's not a huge roof in the world of roofing at South Grafton Elementary School, but roofing's expensive. It would be about $1.1 million. We've talked many times about the heat and ventilation system. We have 11 units at the middle school. They're all original. They don't sell parts for those units, so when they break, we have to have them basically handmade to keep them functional. And unlike current systems where if a portion of a building was to be down, that furnace was down or that unit was down, you can reallocate the heat and the ventilation. That's not the case at the middle school. It's all original. And then talking about original, we still have those univents that are 43 years old at South Grafton Elementary, and that comes in at just under 500,000. So those are, you can see the whole list, but those are 4 that really jump out. So we've been talking about maybe some different options of things that we can bring to the committee in terms of potentially looking at ways that we could possibly fund a greater amount of capital projects, but we haven't done that yet. So we will be coming to you. We've got to do something, or we're just falling further and further behind in terms of capital projects, something like that. Any questions?
So on your list, not this list we have here,
Yep.
when it's, you have like different things under roof replacement for SGES.
Correct.
Is that what's together, is that?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yep.
that's
Yep.
the total of it.
Almost all the roof projects, we break them down. I
Right.
think North Street is on there. We did the piece over the library, and we break down the other sections, and I think there were 4 sections, and we've got those prioritized.
Do we have any idea how much we would save if we, in the long run, if we replace the ventilation system at the middle school?
Great question. That's come up. I wish there was an easy answer to that. Right now, we don't have one. We did look into maybe organizations that could come in and give us kind of their best thinking on it. We've had vendors come in and give us their best thinking, but
Right,
I assume that's always going to be
to their benefit.
to the whatever that new product is. We haven't found anybody that's third party that could come in at a reasonable rate and tell us that.
The bleacher replacement at the middle school,
That's right.
it says the insurance company wants the bleachers replaced. Is that something that would bump that up on this list? And how
They've been
urgent is-
saying that, and that's been on the list since I've been in Grafton.
Okay, so it's not an imminent.
It's nice to have, they're not demanding it. They're
Okay.
not saying we won't insure you if you don't have it, but safety-wise, they're the old ones, they're original, they slide out, you know, we don't have kids do it. I remember as a kid in gym class, you'd pull out the bleachers, and it was a miracle nobody lost a finger. We don't have any of the kids doing anything like that, but it's not cutting-edge technology in the world of bleachers. I guess that says quite a bit, Amy, the fact that that's going to be somewhere on the list, but it's not going to be
Yeah,
prioritized.
I just wanted to know if it was urgent, the way
Yeah.
that the fire system,
I'd love to be in a position where that jumps right to the top, but it tells you something that it doesn't move the needle.
okay.
So Jay, and when you put the 8.6 million, that's an over 5-year time frame that we expect, right, according to this list?
Yeah.
It's not for this year, we're not
Oh,
looking
gosh,
at
no.
$8.6 million.
No, I mean, we take it as our responsibility to put on anything that's
Yeah.
going to be coming up. Right now, our turf fields
Right,
we're doing great with those. We're putting a lot of effort into those. I don't know, 6 to 10 hours a week, just rotating the pellets, et cetera. And that investment's paid off handsomely, but when they say it has a lifespan of 10 years, it shouldn't be a shock to us that at year 11 or 12,
Right.
if you've been to area districts, Auburn just replaced theirs, but it was like this carpet here. There was it was like a flat carpet. They do have a lifespan, so when that's out, even though we've been saying it since we installed it, it's still gonna be a shock to people.
right, no, it will. And I mean, we were just actually kind of talking about that, people still think the high school's new, which, you
Right.
know, in compared to North Street, it is new, absolutely, but things still go in a new building and need to be replaced, and this has been here for a while. I guess, you know, my question is, I'm just not sure what I know you're gonna come back with recommendations for some grants. I'm personally currently confused. I'll reach out to Mr. Prisby. I'm not sure what the capital process is. According to last night, we have a great process and a wonderful plan, so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with that and, taking care of our plan. I'm not sure what that is. We're down, if we still do have a CIPC committee, currently, we don't have a representative on it. You were on the bylaw committee,
Right.
Amy, but Peter served on that for my entire time. So we'll need a volunteer for that. We don't have to do that tonight, but if people want to think about that and learn more about it, I think it's a chance you meet with the other boards and you share our school. In the old days, it seemed like it worked. I guess it's a great committee, so might be a good opportunity to be on it. So I'm confused on what our next steps are. Tim said last night they have a great plan, they just don't know, they don't have funding because that has to go. So I'd really like to start coming down and figuring out when we're gonna have to when are we gonna have to take on these huge projects? Am I making sense? I know I'm
You're
rambling a
making
little
sense.
bit.
Yeah,
But, we are gonna have to do these turfs, that's, together, that's what, $1.4 million. We have $900,000 in roofs. I mean, that's a ton of money that we know Grafton doesn't have.
right. I mean, safely say half of that would be well before the turf fields, but
Right.
Yeah.
look at those
Sure, but that's
original
still
heating
6
units
years is,
right there.
that
That's
comes.
1.2.
Yeah, super quickly all that
We could have a
time.
bake sale.
Jay, can I
We
ask you
could have a
about
bake sale.
a much smaller proposed expense, but one that, when it says handicap parking for Middle Street School, provide parking in the front of the main entrance,
Yeah.
how far does anyone who needs handicap parking have to walk now? I can't visualize it.
Right now, you can only park legally on the two ends of that building.
Right.
So to access the
come in
front
that side.
entrance, you
The
have
side
to,
is locked, so you have to go to
Yeah.
the front.
correct.
That seems as though maybe
Oh,
we
yeah.
should push that up,
Right.
because that just seems blatantly wrong, that,
Well, and that's a good segue right into the ADA,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So maybe we can, I'm gonna go back to Mike, because I didn't
Sorry, I
really.
didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you,
I
but
didn't
that-
actually make
I
a
saw
point, but
that
that's
and
a
I was
good,
like-
it's a very good thing
Yeah.
to call out. I just wanna figure out what, as a committee, really, what our next, how do we present this? Where do we go from it? If it's waiting till you come back next week, I'm fine with that.
I'm not sure how it's gonna play out. I haven't heard from CIPC
Yeah.
nor Tim in terms of this year's process, other
Right.
than I know by the end of the month, our plan is due.
Okay,
So
that's,
again, it
okay.
won't be anything that would surprise anybody here. We're going to have that's the two-page version of, maybe it's a 60-page plan with
Okay.
photos,
Right,
specs,
the
all that
typical
stuff.
thing that we do, which
We'll
is,
put that forward, but we're not gonna break it out by year. We'll just say, here's
Perfect.
our list of things.
yeah,
And we'll put some level of priority. Of course, we prioritize heat and safety, et cetera, but right up there is gonna be ADA compliance, as Melissa referred to, which takes us into, you might recall over the I think it was over the summer, the town did an assessment of, they received a grant and focused on the municipal I think all the spaces aside from the schools, were included in this grant. They came back with a big report on what needed to be done. We have been unable, we have looked, but there's no grant sitting out there for us to take advantage of. In lieu of that, and we'll continue to look, and maybe as the year goes on, something will open up. But we are going to have an internal ADA assessment, if you will. There are tools that you can access, that we can have somebody with a tape measure and,
right.
this list, do it. Is it gonna be the equivalent of a $30,000 outside agency coming in? Probably not, but it's a great step forward. So we're gonna be starting that next week. It'll probably take a month. That could be revised after 2 days. The people we have doing this might say, whoa, this is slow. But they're gonna do an assessment of the entire district, including playgrounds, and then obviously I'll bring that forth. If something in the meantime breaks and we can apply for some kind of grant, fantastic. To give you just a little taste of, talk about the 8.6 million being overwhelming. When you do an ADA assessment and actually it's one thing to assess, but another thing to actually make these changes, the prices and the cost is just tremendous. Incredibly important, but tremendous cost. This is just one example that Tony and I were talking about today. If you go over to North Grafton Elementary School, it's all those round doorknobs. You need to change from the doorknobs to the levers. Sounds pretty straightforward. It can't be that much, right? Well, they're 137, and conservatively about 550 for the hardware.
550 because that's an
That's
awfully
through,
expensive lever.
that's a state price, the state bidding price.
Wow.
That's
I could do
that's
better
good.
for you than that.
Maybe, we'll have to talk to Tony. But the school's built in 1955.
Right.
Yeah, when this wasn't even a thing.
Oh, not even
And this is
ever thought of.
crucially
They were
important.
lovely
Yeah,
doorknobs.
Right.
But that's $75,350 conservatively for doorknobs at one building, just to give you a taste. So,
and yet
It's
you
going
look
to
at it
be,
and you say, okay, so important for adults, but this is an elementary school, and think about the sort of self-confidence of a kid
you got it.
who can't get into a room by him or
Yep,
herself. That's just, seems like we have to.
Right, right, and we're gonna have that times 200.
Right.
Right.
So
And
I think it's important work. I'm glad that we're moving ahead with it. I will keep you posted, but this is gonna end up being basically an addendum to our existing capital plan. I mean, it's gotta be, and it may
Right.
trump some things, but we're gonna move as quickly as we can on it.
And then, have you, I'm sure you have or will, explored any grants? I know there's states, I know when we did the townhouse for the ADA compliance, we were able to reach out for some grants.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
We looked today, but
Right.
I saw some that we may qualify for.
I mean, obviously.
Purposefully looking around the assessment piece
Mhm.
and couldn't find anything yet.
Right.
But I'll ask around and, we'll do
Yeah.
our best. But in the meantime, we've got a plan in place.
Good. Well, thank you for that. It's important. It's funny that it's 2019 and like this is the first, like I feel like we're just paying for the, it's like you
Yeah.
can't push things off forever. I mean, it
Yeah.
starts in like if people had just had the forethought in 1955.
I'd like to think we're gonna be in better shape, obviously, with the high school
Right.
and Millbury Street. That's the hope, but
Yeah.
we still have 4 older buildings.
Right, and Millbury Street, we just found out, still doesn't have adequate parking. So,
Correct.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
and that's a fairly
Yep.
newish building and,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
You don't have adequate what?
Handicap parking.
Oh,
Like there's nothing in the front of the building.
oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so next steps, so you're gonna come back, you're gonna work, your plans due, when's your plan due?
By the end of the month, I think
Okay.
it was on the 1st.
And that goes
but-
to Tim.
Correct.
I know that, I'm just trying to map it out in my mind.
Yep.
Thanks, okay.
Ready for this?
Hold on, let me get there.
No.
No.
What else can we talk about? Okay, Jen's ready.
All right. So this is something that's discussion of fees, came up, obviously brought up by the school committee. It's taken on immediate importance as a potential area of revenue. It's certainly worthy of discussion, given that we've got essentially a $7 million operating issue over the next 7 years that we talked about at the last meeting. I was asked to provide the committee, which I did, with a general sense or an overview of regional fees, along with information that broke down athletic fees, activity fees, transportation fees. I provided that spreadsheet that had area districts, 16 area districts included. I did have, or asked Lynn Leofanti to call each district just to confirm. There were some slight changes. We're talking about $25, $10 here and there. So 96% of that spreadsheet is dead on. I am gonna update those numbers and I'll give them back to you before we end up coming back in the future to talk about fees one way or the other. In terms of that overview, I looked at 16 area districts. The only area district that I didn't consider was Worcester, in that it's a city. The finding was that 81% of the districts currently charge an athletic fee ranging from $50 to $315 per sport. 3 of those districts charged more for hockey and or football. 5 out of 16 districts charged athletic fees with a range, activities. 5 of 16 charge activities fees with a range of $25 to $100. Westboro's got this unique setup, which I don't fully understand yet, but they basically combine activities with athletics, and I do have more information on that. In terms of busing fees, 7 out of 14% charge with a range of $100 to $300. The reason it's 14 is regional districts can't charge fees for busing. And lastly, parking, 5 out of 16 charge parking fees, range of $20 to $210 per student for parking. We can certainly talk about activity fees, but activity fees, historically, when we've talked about them, there are a lot of components, a lot of issues, more issues with activities fees than athletic fees. So initially, I focused on those for you. As of last year, we had 789 Grafton High School athletic participants in our MIAA sports.
And
Yep,
what's our total school
about
population?
900. But this includes kids, say Tyler did 3 sports, he's included 3 times in that.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
so what's the actual, but you wouldn't be charged
I-
3 times?
A lot of districts do
Depends.
do
If
that.
you do
Most
per sport,
actually do.
Depends on
Per
what we
sport.
did.
Um,
Of
We
course,
could.
yep,
But that's a great question. There are a bunch of things, and I promise I'll get to them,
okay.
that at this early stage, I haven't included.
Because
Like,
that seemed like just the mental math, that didn't
Absolutely,
seem right. Yeah,
correct.
okay.
We haven't gone through, and that gets, this is one of those variables that gets tricky. If Tyler's that 3-sport athlete and he graduates, and we
It's
don't
all
have
your
another
fault.
Tyler coming in doing 1 or doing nothing, that number obviously drops. See, it's not particularly consistent.
Yeah.
But we can do that. We're gonna, next step, if asked to, would be to go through actual individuals, see who does what. So you take that 789, we have a 12% free and reduced rate in the district. So if we applied that, we'd be removing 96 students from that total and saying we'd have 694 athletes per year, okay? With that, we're not including any kind of cap at this point. We're not including any kind of decrease, if, I keep picking on you, Tyler, but say Tyler was gonna do track, and he was kind of on the fence, doesn't really wanna do track in the spring, but his parents are on his case. He doesn't really feel like getting a job. His friends are doing track. Great. If he's gotta pay X number of dollars, he might decide to take the grief from his parents or go get a job or whatever. So we just don't know what that impact would be if we were to include a fee. But, so those were my assumptions. What I did is I put 4 scenarios. We could come up with any combination of scenarios with any dollar figure, et cetera, but just to set the stage for an initial discussion. So currently, if we maintain the current fees that we have, we've got that $200 for the buses, 7 through 12, with the $400 family cap, and the same with parking, $200. We generally bring in about $162,000 a year through those fees.
And Jay, can you
Yep.
remind me where those fees, they're earmarked, right, for specific
Correct.
purposes, correct?
Yeah, just the bus fees offset the cost that we pay for the buses.
Yeah.
And then parking fees, typically we pay for the salary of maintenance worker at the high school, not the whole salary, but part of that salary. We also pay for a few $100s just for the stickers for the parking pass.
So that's 162. If we added that athletic fee, again, assuming no cap and that we have no decrease in student participation, and if we did the $200 that we do for transportation and parking, we would bring in a total of $301,000. The other scenario was to add an athletic fee at $100 a sport, obviously that brings in $231. And last but not least, I brought this up, I think I've brought it up a few times over the years. But one thought is reducing the transportation and the parking fee, which is on the high side. The highest in the area is 210, we're at 200. If we knock that down to 150 for transportation, 150 for parking, and 150 per sport, we would bring in $225,000 in total. To see that all at once, obviously we have the three new scenarios along with the current scenario, and in the lower right, those three columns, you can see in the green, the additional revenue, again, without a cap and without any decrease in participation. And then lastly, in terms of considerations, I talked about that family and student cap. This is seen usually outside, it seems like the norm, or more, the majority of districts do a simple, you do 3 sports, you pay that athletic fee 3 times. It's as simple as that. There are some districts that have either a family cap or a student cap. So again, going back to Tyler, if he did 3, maybe the cap is 2. So instead of, if it was 200 per sport, you'd pay 400 max a year, and he could do 3 sports.
Jay, can I ask a
Yep.
question? We currently already charge for students who play hockey, right? Because we don't have the ice rink and we
What
have
do we
the-
charge for?
And for swimming,
for
is that
that?
right? For both? Or is it no longer?
That's true.
It always
I don't know
was.
what that
We-
number is off the top of my head.
I think we might have charged at some point. I'm not sure that we charged.
Don't charge anymore? It was up till about a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, there were issues with the co-op in terms of the charging. I can find out
Okay.
exactly
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
do and historically and
just-
what we do now.
Just thinking, do we already have a scenario where students have been charged to do a sport and has it?
The only
Shut
2 that come
anyone
to
out.
mind would be swimming, anything with
I
the
thought
co-op.
hockey.
Hockey, yep, co-op. We do wrestling now, co-op, and I don't believe there's a fee, but I can
Yeah.
definitely find out
Yeah.
tomorrow, that's easy. I don't know of any charges we've had that have had an impact. I can't imagine there wouldn't be an impact.
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe, but
Yeah,
I don't know one off the top of my head or a certain story.
yeah.
Um,
And then have you thought about analyzing what sports are most costly and prorating for cost
I
of
can-
sport?
One of the
And clearly swimming, when my daughter was doing it, was expensive because you had to rent, and hockey is
Right.
expensive because you have to rent.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
typically, those two and
But I
football
would think that
comes up.
like cross-country is pretty dang cheap.
I would think so, yeah, I would, I really would.
Except for.
I
the-
mean, out of
there's
this,
so
I
many of them
expect to
that
have,
Transportation.
is that-
Transportation's probably the
Right.
biggest
I can
cost.
tell that only pales, right, in the comparison of a turf field, or, I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that looks like one of, you had, I asked because you had one of these places, there was somewhere here where somebody, what was it, for hockey and football? 3 districts.
yeah, that's fairly
Charge more.
common.
Yeah,
But we can get any information, obviously, whether it's that kind of breakdown. We generally spend about $470,000 on athletics as a
Mhm.
whole, annually, including transportation. There's a little bit of offset for gate receipts and stuff, but that goes to generally referees,
mm-hmm.
so. Where the heck
When you
was
say
I?
gate receipts, you mean people paying to come into the game?
Correct, yep. Middle school, we don't do it now. There are some sports that we, in the future, may need to, well, middle school isn't, we've got athletics. There are districts who go down to middle school in terms of a fee. We don't have it now, but I could see in the future in certain sports having middle school students wavered in to participate on the JV teams. If that were to happen, that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. If activities is I'm happy to talk about activity fees. Activity fees are, all fees are messy, but activity fees are inherently very messy because all activities are not, they tend to be very different in terms of the nature and the scope. You could have a SAD meeting where the student, it's great, the kids are participating in SAD, it might be a 45-minute meeting once every 2 weeks. That's just very different than football practice every day. Even cross-country, different uniforms,
pay a
different
coach.
everything, but they are pretty much running every day, going to meets, et cetera. Theater, typically, when you get in the world of fees, is somewhere in the middle, where it's not all year, it's not necessarily a full season. They don't have a fall season for theater, a winter season. Every season isn't the same. The scope of the spring musical might be very different than the fall drama. But they usually, it tends to be, and it's always messy talking about fees, a lot of finger pointing and what about these guys? And theater kind of gets stuck in the middle. So that's something that's going to have to be considered if activities are looked at.
Do their ticket sales offset the costs?
They do. Yep.
And in addition to that, they do an ad sale, which they're in the middle of right now, which all the cast members are responsible for X dollars worth of ads.
Right.
So that's in effect a fee.
Yep.
That you're working off.
Yeah.
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 Right.
I believe the crew is also responsible for a smaller amount because they spend less time preparing for the show, but they have a smaller amount this year.
Who was that?
The crew,
A crew. Yeah.
And not all sports are charging at the door, right? Just football?
Just the ones that can expect.
No.
Basketball.
Basketball
you
and-
pay.
and- Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, lacrosse, there is a rhyme and reason to it. I can find out what that is. And when they go to tournaments, they have to charge certain
Right.
things.
I think lacrosse is free until you get to the
Yeah.
finals or
Yeah.
whatever the.
that's
But
always
people
tricky.
often think they pay at whatever, some game, and they think that just saved the day, and, busing is covered now
Yeah.
because of their $6. It goes to like the refs and
Yeah, yeah,
timekeeper. It's nice, but it doesn't go far.
yeah. I struggle so much with this concept just fundamentally because I think that activities outside of school, whether it's theater, whether it's athletics, whether it's whatever club, they are such an important part of education. It's everything. And I literally, it kills me to think about, because the kids whose family are going to struggle with it, they're not going to come ahead and say, I can't do this because of $200. It's not going to happen. So that's a big worry for me, although looking at that amount that we could bring in is really tempting. I do struggle with it just from a fundamental standpoint because I think it's a really important thing, and I like that idea that anyone can try anything, and it's an important part of their education.
I was going to say that I think in an age where we have so many students that come into the high school having participated in X years of club whatever, there's always kids that have never played, and they have just as much of a chance to make the team. And I worry that parents are not going to want to spend $200, $150, or $100 for their kid to try a sport at age 14.
But field hockey, it's a brand-new sport to
Right,
most
it
people.
is.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, brand new, and you will be spending, a lot of money. Sorry, go ahead. I have another question I was gonna say. Can I continue?
No.
All right. We did this.
What did you mean by you will be spending a lot of money, like for camps or?
No,
What do you-
if you've never, so field hockey is a brand-new sport
Right.
for the town in general.
Right.
So does everyone who goes in want to pay that fee?
Oh, I see
for
what you're
never
saying.
ever
I thought
playing
you meant you
before?
were gonna, got it. Thank you, Jen.
No,
That's
But
why
I
I
guess
asked.
the problem, I
Right.
can't imagine anyone sitting here would disagree with what either of you said. It's not a question of, is it a good idea? It's a wonderful idea. We should have every after school, there should be an opportunity for every kid to do everything. It's just, I don't think you're saying this lightly, Jay.
Oh, no,
This is not with the idea
having
that,
this
I think
conversation,
we could all get right on that bandwagon of this is wonderful. It's, how do you do it? Yeah.
That's one of our strengths, is, I think you guys would probably agree, we have kids doing everything.
It's
You walk into that
wonderful.
building, it's not the
Yeah.
same kids every time. I know we do have, we don't have 789 out of 900 doing sports, if you will, but even kids doing 3 sports, that's a lot of kids doing sports, but it's art clubs, it's, I mean, you name it, DECA, we traveled today, we're talking about
It's-
the golf teams, we've got kids doing stuff all the time.
The only other
It's
thing I
awesome.
see activities getting hard is for a lot of activities you already pay anyway, because like for the fee for the team, there's not necessarily dues or anything, because you don't, if you don't make the tennis team, you don't have to pay 100 X amount, but like, I know for DECA, we charge 50 to get in, it's 45 then if you have to go to districts, we have to pay $7 for lunch at Nichols, then you have to pay, if you make it to states, it's $500, if you make it to internationals, it's $1,500. So you're already paying $2,000 there, and if it's just another cost, I can see
Sure.
that being
So a lot of
hindrance
bake
are already
sales.
saying they've already
Yeah.
paid, yeah,
And they
a
have.
whole lot of bake sales.
Look at,
Yeah.
look at the, how many service-based programs we have. We have an incredibly robust Best Buddies program.
I guess the problem is you see it's
You're
like
paying
one of
for
those
that.
horrible think experiments where you say, which person do you throw out of the rowboat?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not, do you want to throw somebody out of their boat? It's that you have to.
Yep.
Jen?
So, we were talking about, last year, did you implement the sliding scale for the
Preschool.
preschool?
Yeah.
How has that been,
Uh,
received?
you know, like,
Can you bring us up to speed on what that is?
yeah, we just have an income-based sliding scale for preschool fees. So the family pays around $2,500 a year for half-day preschool, because that's the full price, and $6,000 a year for full-day preschool. But there's a income I look at. I get income documentation from parents if they want to try to qualify for a reduced fee, and then we've had, I believe last year, 4 or 5 families qualify for a discount. It could be up to a 90% discount, or it could be 50% discount. But I think it's been helping some families being able to actually participate in preschool. It's an optional thing, so for these families, so some families have chosen not to participate in preschool because of the fee, so I think it's been helpful for those families.
I'm just thinking if we decide to go forth with it, that's just another tier to look into. Like what, because that may change if we decide to go that route. Because, I mean, I think all of us agree that if we do go forward with this, it will hurt some families more than
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, my fear is exactly that. It's the equity, which is what and we've talked about this before. So you could just roll tape. My feelings have not changed on this, but it's and these kids already have all the advantage. Like they're already they're already playing club sports outside, or they're already doing all these things outside, and they've already been paying for. I mean, right? We all pay for our outside activities, or at least I do. That all these years, but it's the people that can't, but don't qualify for
Absolutely,
free and
right.
reduced lunch. You know, the people that struggle for the bus fees, which is what I because that's, so we already have some fees that are implemented. What do you feel like your feedback has been, or your experience collecting the fees, managing the fees, hearing from people who are affected from the transportation and parking fees? How's that experience been for you over the years?
For the bus fees, if for free reduced families, they don't have to pay the bus
Right.
fee, but for the families that aren't free reduced but can't afford it, typically we have them pay as like a payment plan, $100 a month or $50 a month, something like that.
Do you know roughly how many families that is, Dan?
Like a payment plan family?
Yeah.
I'd say something like maybe just 10 families.
I remember last year we had a small number of families that tried to duck paying the bus fee.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah,
sent their
that's
kids
every
on the
year.
bus anyway and refused to pay it, and then the kids got talked to, and, I mean, this literally happened, I couldn't believe it. But somewhere around November, right, we have to have the bus drivers start checking
That's right.
Yeah.
the passes. And the parents have to pay or their kids can't take the bus.
And I mean, I would say, arguably, we have to take the, you have to get to school. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of my fundamental thing about the transportation is, and
Yeah,
I
that's even
actually-
more troublesome.
it is a little bit, even though I do firmly believe, like, we offer these activities and I'm public school, like, I mean, and I've been trying to think about all the things we still pay for. And we pay, if you want to play band, you have to pay for your instrument, we obviously don't, you have to buy lunch. We don't have free lunches for everybody, or you bring your lunch, all of that, we do pay. And all the money we've all paid over the years into our fundraising activities, that starts as soon as you start the school and it goes through till the end, if you want to, So when I say, like, I feel like I don't want to be hypocritical, but I mean, I truly believe that everything should be, it's public school, and you should be able to, if we're offering it, it's not extra, it's a part of the experience, it's a part of being a student. But to me, it's like fundamentally getting to school, when you're, paying, you have to pay to even walk through the door or to drive, unless you have a parent that's home and can drive you, and, I think there's less and less of that's able, so. I'm totally rambling, and I've been thinking about this, like, how to even talk about it. But then I look at those numbers, and it's like, again, like, almost like the ADA, like, it's been pushed and pushed and pushed, and now it's like, here we are. And, I know there's a certain amount of people that want to see us, push and push. And I think it goes back to what we said 2 weeks ago when we talked about later start times, like, what's the impact, I guess, to me? Like, okay, so if we raise fees, what is the effect of that? If we don't raise fees, what do we have to cut? What are people gonna feel? Does it come down to, we have to cut it, when we look at cuts, I think we're gonna have to look at a sport to cut too. Like, we have to look across the board on what's costing us money and what we can't afford. So, I mean, we never said, we're not obviously voting tonight, but I also don't want this, like, lingering for, we talk about it, I've talked about it, at least this is my third or fourth time talking about fees, because we never want to do it. Like, bottom line, and I know none of us up here want to do it. It's not good
Like
for,
any of the choices.
no,
Yeah.
no.
I wanted to point out that I had asked Jay to look into class dues, because that's
Oh,
another
right.
expense that parents incur. I think in the good old days, the kids paid their own class fees. I know I paid mine, but it's very hard for some students to find work, especially when they're 14, 15. So let's face it, the parents are paying these fees, $25 a year. But if they come in, let's say they transfer back into the district or something, they still have to pay the full 100 if they want to go to prom, which is, of course, an additional expense on top of the class dues. So I found it interesting to see what the districts, that's in our online document. I don't know if it's in the
It's in the
paper
book.
document.
It's in the book.
The fees are all over the place, and I don't know who sets them and who collects them at the various schools. But we're not high, we're not low in that department. So that's another $100 on top of the transportation fee, and
But $100 over 4 years.
over 4 years, right.
To me, dues feels okay.
Oh, I'm not saying get rid of them. Oh, please let me be clear. I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm saying that's a
another thing.
financial burden, small though it may be, it's there. And for some families, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
and I don't know if we make any exceptions in that regard. If we do, I would assume it's in the hands of the class advisors. I
I
have no
really
idea.
hope that if,
I would hope.
if someone doesn't show up with it, at some point the advisor crosses that name off the list and says, here we go, you're fine.
We do.
The incremental piece of that is, for me, kind of what makes it more palatable. It's a small amount of money over the course of 4 years.
As opposed
maybe
to
there's a different
Tantascwa
way to-
charging $80 right up front.
Right.
What do our boosters bring in, do you know?
Athletic boosters, I can find out. I don't know off the
Yeah.
top of my head. When you brought it earlier, you touched on the PTGs.
Yeah.
Annually, I believe it's about 150,000.
Yeah, between the two, it's about 150,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a separate thing, and I meant to bring it up, thank you, when we talked about the budget, like, we're already having parents fit the bill for things that are in our strategic plans. They're paying for the flexible seating, they're paying for technology, they're paying for things, like, that's already happening.
Right.
That people, like, I think we expect it, right? And but people are volunteering, working there, working to get all that done. And that, I know there's different kinds of fundraising that go on in the in the secondary schools, but it's still going on. Is there a music parents?
There is a music
Music.
one. Yeah, they sell refreshments to football
Right.
games. And that money, I know there's
50/50 raffle.
There's
Yeah.
a 50/50
Yeah.
raffle, there's a scholarship that they fund with that money, and they also use it to defray the cost of whatever the trip that year is. This year it's New York City and Hershey, I think.
Yep. Chicago and Dear Evan Hansen, I saw.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's very exciting.
But the kids
yeah.
will pay,
Right.
so just to be clear, the
Yeah,
kids
the
are gonna
kids pay
pay
for their field trips.
hundreds of dollars for that
Right.
field trip.
And we haven't even talked about the money that people pay to go on field trips too,
That's
which
true.
is also,
Well, and there, of course, the biggest cost driver is the transportation. It's not,
Yep.
that they're doing these crazy activities, it's the busing.
I'd be curious about the athletic boosters, what that brings in, and then also, does that just defray the costs of the athletics themselves? Like the.
Yeah, I think usually they'll fund things like uniforms or even, let's say sweatshirts if somebody wins the state championship or something,
Yeah.
like a kind of
Yeah.
award type things.
I know, I believe they contributed, if they didn't fund in entirety, in the high school now, there's like a Hall of Fame display for athletics, so it's my take on it is much like Dan's. It tends to be around specialized items or investments, but I can easily find out, and I'll find out about the music as well.
Yeah, just to see because that doesn't seem like, from what you're saying, that's not really going towards the sport, it's going towards,
I don't
And I-
know.
Well,
if
I just want to
don't
be,
know
it's not like we get I don't believe we get a check for $5,000 to
right.
cover transportation and uniforms.
Right,
and
that's
help
what
with
I'm
that.
asking
That-
for,
that's-
yeah.
That's not the impression I have.
Okay,
Could be wrong.
could be wrong.
Because some of it raises quite a bit of money. That bingo volunteer thing at
Yeah.
Seven Hills.
Oh, my husband's done that multiple
Yeah.
years.
And I guess, you know what, I feel like there are opportunities with the parents of the kids that are participating in sports. We have some really excited fans out there, and there are a big number of us, and I feel like we could maybe ask more from that already passionate group who could afford to pitch in or rally around the cause. I feel like there's some, I don't know, there's some potential there.
opportunities?
Yeah, exactly. That's.
I also think there might be some rules on like what, if it's a 501c3,
Mm-hmm.
like what they're allowed to give to a school and what are we allowed to take. So I don't know what all that. So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's the special stuff, not, I want to pay for the turf, not that they could, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Right.
I
the turf,
think
but
it has something like that. Like there's more of a,
Yeah,
a
I
lo-
think,
a
I think
legal
you're right
part.
on that. Yeah,
So I'll find out. That's easy.
Council about.
yeah,
Jim will have that.
yeah. No, I know. I think, and I know we're all kind of just brainstorming here too, and
Yeah.
it's just, I'm just thinking like all the fees that, we do have fees. It's not just the $200, so when Grafton doesn't have any fees, we do, and
can we hear from you guys? How do you think do you think it would have an impact on participation?
Yeah, I think it would. In student council, we have $25 dues for just to be in it, and there's about 70 members-ish, and the vast majority just go to like the mandatory meetings and stuff. So if you put in an extra fee on top of that, then you would see a lot of those kids just not show up because they can't afford that if they're only going to once a month meetings. So it would shrink down to like half that size.
I think it'd have more effect on activities if you went to that sport. But even with sports, I think there are some sports, just think of like the large ones, like the football team, track teams, where there's a lot of kids who might not necessarily be as passionate. I don't know how to, because I don't mean to, but there's certain kids like on the track team and the football team who do it because they want to do it, not because they're thinking they're going to go to college for sports, but they just want to do it.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
input $100 or $200 or whatever, why would anyone want to do that if they don't really care, but they really just want to participate? And so then you might see track. It'd still probably have a couple kids who really want to do it, who love it, who are competing for events, and you're going to lose all the kids who go there, who are equally probably a big part of the team always there. Why would they do it if they don't see a future for themselves?
right. And to me, and I mean, that is the majority of what high school
Yes.
sports should be. I mean, there's Obi, but there's then, you know, everybody
Everybody
else.
else.
Like you know, you might play in your D3 or you might play a pickup, you know, I
Yeah.
mean,
And there's
That's what
only
it should
OB as often as there's a lightning strike.
which, you know, is amazing. And I'm not, you know, but
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like to me, and like then it gets a good question. Like I'm paying $200 and I don't play. Or we talk, I'm $200 and I'm on stage for one line and, you know, 200, you know what I mean? Like, then it's like, I don't know.
Well, if I can
mean-
chime in here just a bit, my concern is actually kind of the other end, and that is that for some of these kids, these activities and sports are what keep them engaged in school to begin with. And what's the impact going to be on our dropout rate? If we've got kids whose parents don't want to pay the money and say, just go home after school and do your homework,
Yeah.
and they become disengaged, disenfranchised, the grades start to fall, they have no reason to succeed because they're not trying to stay on a team. And I could be overstating that could be doomsday kind of stuff, but that's what I think of. The kids that need sports and need theater and need band, because that's what keeps them going through this time in their lives. And I know I was one of those kids, theater was my thing. And if I didn't have theater, I don't know what would have happened. But
There have been school districts, haven't there, that quite spectacularly have got rid of
Yeah.
big sports or big programs, and it would be interesting to see, does this play out? You know, is it the end game?
Well,
it may not be half the kids, but it could be, you know, even 10%. Is that acceptable?
so Mills, I
us.
mean, you did bring that up, but, so let's go back, you know, we have a 800, I forget now, it's like, in my mind, it's like a how many $1 million over the next?
Roughly 7.
$7 million. And I know when we did it, I think 2 years ago, or maybe it was when we mapped out what it was going to look like a few years down the line, we did eventually just have to cut, you know, fees are not going to cover our, they're
Right.
not going to dent
Right.
that gap.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I go back, but they could cause you know, harm in the meantime. It could make, you know, it could please a certain, you know, okay, we have our fees now, but that's going to,
We have our fees now, but we still need to raise your taxes to cover the funding gap.
or we're gonna not have anything. I mean, we're not gonna be able to, it's not sustainable around, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
and so it's that,
Yeah. Don't like either choice.
yeah. Who do we throw off the boat, is that what you said? I'll jump. How's that? Okay, do we have any more, I mean, there was a lot of questions you're gonna come back with.
I'm gonna come back with the booster amounts.
Yeah.
The breakdown of the sport costs as best we can figure out.
Yeah,
And the co-op related fees and that history.
okay.
And then any complications from a legal standpoint of, I don't remember who brought that up, but like whether,
Yeah.
whether you can actually, what
So
was the
for
question?
No, you're
Boosters.
asking if Booster can fund more. I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, I think they have a scope of what they're allowed to
Okay,
Right.
so I get it.
do, you know, so I don't think it's an expectation. And it's
We-
kind of like we shouldn't expect PTO to pay for things that we should
No.
be doing.
We shouldn't.
It's a
Right.
nicety.
And I'm just gonna just take a chance to just say thank you to everybody out there that is tirelessly fundraising for the extra money and say how much we appreciate it. So thank you. Go
But
ahead.
I do think that you have a good point, is that there are missed opportunities that we might be able to take advantage of, to drive forward things that aren't necessary by law, but that for schools, but that we want as a school district.
Right.
For our kids.
Well, I do know other towns, like I know in Franklin, they have like a foundation that does, it's a fundraising, it's a group of, you know, they group of parents and they fundraise.
They have that in
And
Westboro too.
I was seeing that they, you know, they do pay we didn't look at Franklin obviously because they're not in, but they do have fees. And then there was like, they had an event and they're like, even though we have fees, we still don't cover, it doesn't cover. And they were doing fundraising to,
Right.
you know,
Right,
pay for it. But that, again, you can't count on that. Like
but maybe you
I
can try to
can't
drive
budget
it
for
forward.
a,
And ask a little bit of the people who, because I just feel like people are willing, they're willing
Yeah.
and excited already, so why not take advantage
Yeah.
of it a little bit? Have you ever been to that DECA party?
I have never yet go because I'm always away, but I did donate to it.
I think
There's
that
always
does.
comes at a weekend I'm away.
I think that does pretty well, and
Those
it's,
are very
Yeah,
low.
it does. No,
Well,
and
Tyler
people,
would know. But it does cost a
Yeah.
lot to
Yeah.
host also, but,
Yeah.
you know.
no, but and I've gone to, you know, we go to,
Right?
but I did.
you know, there are many activities that we all go to and we fun, but I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
we're already doing that. We're already paying, you know, I don't know. I guess, so we'll get the answers to that. You know, I think it's
I'll have that by
obviously,
Friday. That's
we're
easy.
gonna have to seriously think about it. I mean, we have to look at revenue opportunities and everywhere we can, but,
It's
you
true.
know, it's tough. It's something I'm adamantly against. I have been for every time. I have not changed my mind. But, yeah,
Future planning.
future planning, difficult decisions. Okay. Are we finished with fees, or does anybody have anything else to say? Tyler, did you have anything else to add for fees? We're still on the discussion.
No, I think I've said my piece.
We did give a good DECA plug, though, for the
Thank you.
gala while you were
I
out.
can get that one in.
Yeah.
I assume you make a profit on your party, your DECA party?
We make usually, so we club on average is 25,000 a year, roughly. It's gone up now that we have 50 members, so it's probably looking more like 30,000 a year. And from the gala, we'll do 23,000 in revenue usually, and about 11,000 profit. So it covers like
That's
roughly half.
impressive, well done.
So half of our funding will come through there, and then the rest will be made up. So like usually, so for states, it's roughly 800 per person. We get it down to about 450 usually per year. And then internationals is going to usually be about 2,000 per person. We get it down to about 1,300 usually per year.
Pretty darn good, yeah.
Oh, I had a related question, and if this is out of bounds, let me know. The subject of stipends came up recently. And is that part of the teacher
It's for the
side?
contract.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's not part and parcel of this whole thing. Okay.
No,
Nope.
that's not out of bounds. Good question. Yeah, so that'll be negotiated when, through the contract.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for all your work on that. You know, thanks
Pleasure.
everybody for a thoughtful discussion, and we'll keep going. School committee member reports. Anybody have anything?
I do.
Amy,
I do have one. I wrote
do you wanna
one.
pull it up? Cause I could ask, I wanted to hear
Go ahead and
about,
ask around.
there's one homecoming and any updates for us?
He can talk. I'm not. We the seniors lost.
I know.
That was a rough one.
Nice job, nice
Congrats,
job,
Go juniors!
Yeah, that's like an upset for the ages.
Yeah.
That's all right. But other than that, I think
No, it was good.
heard good things
Yeah.
about the dance and
Dance was good.
Yeah.
Week was good. We
How about-
raised. I think we ended up doing. You might more. I think it was $1,300 from Penny Wars,
nice.
Wow.
and then
Yeah.
1,400 cans.
Yeah, there's
Wow.
a lot.
I can't. There was two numbers very close together, and I know it was in the
Yeah.
thousands
That
sounds
on
right.
both.
Wow.
So that was good. Obviously, I
fun.
mean, I know it probably comes second thought to some kids, but I mean that is what Mr. Pigtrial pushes for homecoming. So we did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did win Penny Wars though, so I want to take that. We
But
did
you
win
lost the
It
tug
seems
of
like, I
war.
think it was
Not a
very
complete
close.
walk of
that.
shame.
It was not a
Very
complete
close.
loss.
Walk of shame.
There were small. There were small victories.
Yeah, you know what's fun is later in life, nobody usually really asks you.
See, I think it's more fun because now it's
Oh.
memorable. Now that we're past like actually losing and me being like, well, how do we lose?
You just keep telling yourself
I
that.
was
Now I
just
can just
too
tell
soon.
everyone that we were the first class to lose, or one of the first classes to lose. So now we're memorable.
It's all in the spin.
Everyone else wins, so we made it memorable.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. Good. I like your attitude.
Thank you.
You know, it's great. Any,
Revenue from the dance, $10 times however many students win. We mentioned it 2 weeks ago. What was it, 600?
600,
Yeah.
yeah.
$6,000,
That's
which is
great.
very good.
that's great. So anything else? What's coming up?
I don't even know.
You don't even know. I know. James, you gotta. No, I'm just kidding.
You gotta pick up the slack.
Anything. All right. But that's a great update. Thank you.
Thank you.
My brain's not functioning
Yeah.
right now.
No, I know.
No,
I know.
it's
We had a
all-
late.
He says
We all had a
nothing,
late night last night too. so.
Losing does that.
Oh, yeah, it does. Forget about the rest of the year now.
I actually think my class lost too. My senior class lost
See, and you
too.
remember it.
When I was a
all-
sophomore,
I
the
do.
freshman class beat the seniors. I remember that.
Yeah.
That
When I
can't
was a
happen.
Yeah,
The freshmen beat the
beat the seniors.
But I don't
yeah.
even want to tell you what some of our Spirit Week activities were. No.
I'm not funny.
Amy.
The Grafton Sustainability Commission, we met early this month to go over the first round of benchmarking data. We are going to meet again Thursday. We're going to continue to look at the benchmarking data we've gathered, and we're going to set up some subgroups to further examine that data and to move forward with some observations towards a report, our first report. just to provide a deeper update for you folks, the communities that we're using for school district comparisons include some of our geographic neighbors at the request of the committee. So Millbury, Sutton, Ashland, Shrewsbury, and Westboro. And then we also are looking at districts that are similar based on things like enrollment, combined effort yield. Those are Agawam, Amesbury, Bellingham, Holliston, Norton, and Wilmington. And I'd like to thank Dan for his help and fun with spreadsheets. We had a very productive 2-hour meeting. We did not use Northborough and Upton because they're regional districts. They are going to be part of the municipal benchmarking, but they won't be part of the school benchmarking. So what we're gathering, just to give you a sense, because I think we're going to actually release the data itself, we're looking at financial data, enrollment, employment, and outcomes, so we can see how these districts are comparing. How are they spending their money differently from us? What does their ROI look like? And for the record, we're still the lowest ranked in per pupil spending amongst all of those districts, and it's really not even close. I think it's $1,500 different from us to the next highest, and Jay's over there laughing.
A lot.
It is a lot. Let's see. So that meeting, again, it's going to be Thursday, the 24th at 7 p.m. It's going to be here. It's going to be televised. People are welcome to come and observe or watch on TV. And as everybody here probably already knows, my time on the Capital Improvement and Planning Committee bylaw subcommittee is over. That committee sunsetted last night when our bylaw proposal failed. So I'd like to thank, well, first of all, you guys for letting me serve on the committee, because it was really a great experience. I want to thank Matt Often, Colleen Roy, Jeremy Graves, and Peter Carlson. We did a lot of work on that. It was great work, and I don't think it's in vain. I think the discussion's definitely going to continue moving forward into how we can do better at capital planning. So stay tuned, I guess.
Well, thanks for your work on that, Amy. Appreciate it. And I know for the sustainability committee, I know fees are going to come up eventually down the line. So it's good that most of the work has been done.
Hey.
You can hand over the pack,
Yep.
which is good. And I think what I said back last, when we talked about it, I think when you look at it purely financially, of course, people are going to say, yes, you need to implement fees. Like a committee like that is going to recommend, yes, you need to implement fees. And they probably won't think about all the things that we just discussed tonight. So I don't know why I have to say that every meeting, but
It was mentioned.
I do.
I think it was mentioned at the last meeting. Somebody
Yeah.
asked, and I said we were going to be looking at it. I didn't
Yeah.
make any promises, but I said we're going to be looking at it. So
Yeah, which we are. And
Which
we
we are
of
looking
course,
at.
are going to be thoughtful about it. And, but it's not just, at least for me, it's not just a number thing. Like I always, and we all, I think, want to just look at what the impact is on students, because that's our job here.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Anybody else? Do I have anything?
Oktoberfest.
I did. I went to Oktoberfest. It was great. Won 3 raffles. I think they had a fantastic event. Speaking of which, we talk about that brings in 20 to 30. I don't know what their exact number is. We had a fun run at for the North Grafton elementary schools that brought in $55,000. I mean, that goes towards all these things that we don't think about that are just there for our kids all the time. But yeah, Oktoberfest was fantastic. They did a great job, as always. It was a beautiful day, and a lot of fun new things there. So yeah, so thank you for that. Okay, Jay.
All right, so we covered Oktoberfest, so thanks again to South Grafton PTG, and I thought it was great. And the food trucks, they had a
Yeah.
bunch of new things that,
The Hungry
The whole
Hungry
thing was
Hippos.
great.
Did you do that?
no, I didn't.
Probably wouldn't have been good for your, but
Nope.
yeah,
did
I
not do
didn't.
that.
But I would like to. I think that could be a team building event for us. Maybe.
Great.
No,
I
Dan,
object.
can I interrupt just for a minute because Dan's trying to think what it is? I'm sorry. You actually become, it's like a blow up thing, and you become like a hungry hippo, and you put it around your waist, and you have to jump out, get the ball, bring it back, put it on the wall, jump out, and you compete. I did not, my son did, but you go in and you put it out.
I object. We're not
It
doing
was
that.
super fun.
All right. We had a cohort of middle school students recently attend the Tufts Veterinary STEM Conference. They attended Saturday workshops that involved discussions, hands-on activities, and demonstrations, so students could see that STEM is fun, educational, and relevant to daily life. It was, they had a blast, so congratulations to that group. I think I included in my weekly memo some information on, we've got Grafton High School students in health classes. They've been educating the middle school students on the dangers of vaping. Have you guys been involved in this at all? No.
My daughter is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We went over and watched. It was awesome. They break the students down into 8 different sections or lessons, and the middle schoolers rotate through and hear from the high schoolers about the dangers of vaping. I think it's really powerful. I think it's a great model. They're going to keep it up for the remainder of the school year,
Oh, great.
which is awesome. Anthony Mirando, our fantastic Grafton High School English teacher, was the recipient of the 2019 Promising Practices Award that's provided through the Blackstone Valley Educational Collaborative or Consortium. Ms. Kalo, Mr. Mirando, and Mr. Pigotaro attended on Friday morning to recognize his outstanding teaching practice. Just a fantastic guy, fantastic teacher. I can see you guys nodding. He's top notch among a group that's top notch. So very proud of him. We're going to highlight that in the November newsletter. And last but not least, I think I've mentioned before that last week we held a vaping summit, if you will, for secondary administrators, guidance counselors, teachers. It was great. We had a project coordinator from the Central Mass Tobacco Free Coalition come out and speak to us. So we're going to meet every 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to focus on best practices, what our strengths are, what our needs are. One of the things that we're doing well, we've got a social norming campaign that took off at the middle school. It started last year. It's just continued to accelerate. Where middle schoolers are working with other middle schoolers and elementary students to get it out there that vaping isn't cool, it's dangerous, etc. Just today, they were awarded a $5,000 grant through the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance. So we haven't, it's finalized. We're going to get the grant. I'll have more details when we meet next, but that's just another fantastic step forward for us in that campaign. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
That's great.
That's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you. All right, future agenda planning. I did reach out to Mr. Prisby. He wasn't able to attend their last select board meeting, so I did throw out that we'd like to start getting going on meeting together. I think in the meantime, I'd like to call a workshop to really kind of dig into the budget a little bit more. We have a couple open Tuesdays coming up, so I'll send out and we can see if we can find a time. I'd like to try to do it sooner than later.
November's good,
November's good.
because it's only one meeting, right?
I think.
Yep.
Do we only have one meeting?
We only
in
have one
November?
meeting in November. It's the 12th.
We don't have one after that, right?
No, because of Thanksgiving being so late this year.
Right, Thanksgiving. It's such a weird year.
It is very
Yeah,
weird.
like Labor Day, okay. And we have, I don't know who's going to MASC.
I'm going.
I am not.
Okay, I'm going.
I want to talk to you about it.
Okay, all right.
I'm going and coming back, though, because we're going to run the Screenagers sequel. They haven't announced it.
Oh, nice.
So, I don't know if Jay even knows. The high school is going to, and the middle school in partnership, are going to run the sequel to Screenagers that Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm coming back from MASC in the afternoon on Thursday to take my daughters to that. And then
Nice.
I'll be going back
You're gonna
Friday.
go back. Oh, wow. Right.
The original was that good. It
Yeah,
really-
no, Friday sometimes is a bust though there, so you might want to look
I
at
left
the,
early on Friday.
you might want to look at the agenda.
There was something on Friday I wanted, though.
Okay. Okay,
I'm
you
gonna
might
go
be
back.
tired too. It's exhausting. Okay.
Yes, well,
But it's such a good, it's good. There's a lot for me to, that I was interested in too. So we'll report back on what we attend.
Yeah, I went in the
Especially a
past.
new member, it's really,
There's a lot there. You meet a lot of great people. There's a lot of great resources. There's a lot. There's just so much information. And even, I don't know who the guest speaker is, but in the past,
yeah,
they've
there's
always been
usually,
fantastic.
yeah. I can't remember. I went through the agenda and cut, and there's a lot of communication on how to partner with your community that I think is timely for us too. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have MASC as a guiding and all the trainings that they offer. So anyway, we can report back on that. All right, so we'll look over the next few weeks. We have some open times, I think, that we can try to meet. And just really, I'd like to just focus on that and have a good, just dig in. Anybody else have anything that's timely that they'd like added or discussed? And I did also reach out to Tracy Novak, too.
Oh.
I haven't heard back from her yet. I know she's in the very busy right now, but
She's
so-
running for office, I think.
Yeah, running for office and getting funding. She's running
She's
for school committee.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, so,
And, live tweeting every single meeting on the
Right.
Hill about the education bill. I don't know where she gets all her energy.
yeah. So, I kind of pushed that for her maybe in the beginning of the year. I feel like that's probably more of a January thing by the time we get through the holidays and everything. But I'll keep going on that.
So we're gonna have special education report and sustainability committee on the 12th?
Sustainability committee is
bumping?
completely up to you, Amy.
See, I wasn't sure if that was
We put
the
that in.
Grafton Sustainability Committee, or
Yeah.
if that was the
We
other
put
one.
that in as a placeholder
Okay.
for that committee. If at times, I mean, you've been doing a great job updating us.
I don't know that we're
No.
gonna have enough to,
Then you can
I'll do an
just-
update, but
Yeah, ignoring member report, if there's nothing formal, just let me and Jay know, and that's fine. We kind of, when we mapped this out, we were just trying to think of things ahead. We were thinking of things that always come up and just things that we'd like to see, but if, we can always move it. And then the special ed, that was for, Mr. Wall to come,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
so buildings and grounds is gonna be when now?
yeah, we haven't had,
We can do that on the 12th. The plan will be done and submitted, but you
Okay.
can
yeah, maybe we do that.
and give an update. I don't know where, we won't be done with that ADA assessment, but
Oh,
it'll be
right.
Oh,
underway.
gosh, no.
Okay, well, maybe we can, because we do, it's a couple weeks, so we'll see,
I would like to hear the ADA, I'll have it all just be one.
yeah.
Okay.
So if we're not ready,
Okay.
yeah, we can move it. That's interesting that we did the 2 in December. Okay, anyway,
Well, one's budget usually.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that late one. Okay. Sorry. All right, we have a couple of, we have minutes to approve. Got 16 on the book.
Make a motion to accept the minutes for October 8th, 2019 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? I do. I have a minor correction. Just in under correspondence, it's actually it was Representative Meridian's letter, not Senator Moore. And I haven't done it yet, so I will. It's a reminder to me.
Oh,
You just
totally
sent
missed
something to
that.
us.
No, I sent it to you guys as an FYI, but I didn't send it to Dabney to include as the. I didn't do it, so I apologize. I will do it. But it's we'll make that edit. So any other? All right.
Is that the only one?
That's the only one I caught.
Okay.
But-
Oh, no, I think it showed up twice. That was important.
Oh, the only one in?
Yeah, no, I think it was, when I looked earlier, there was two, but I think it was the same date.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right. Motion approved. I think there was only one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we have a warrant.
Yeah.
Are we
Two
there
warrants.
yet?
There's one in the book and then one handout.
Yeah.
The stand up?
Yeah.
Or,
Everybody had that.
oh, this one.
Yeah.
No, I'm not prepared. I
Do,
was prepared.
do the first one.
Which one, 17?
Okay.
Not any.
This one, the one that's in here first.
That's not
We have the
any.
26th, September 26th, and October 24th.
Okay, I'm scroll to the last page, I'm gonna have to turn.
Yep,
this
that's
screen.
okay. Take your time.
Da, da, da. I thought I was all set.
It's okay.
Okay. I move that we approve warrant number 13 dated September 26, 2019 in the amount of $847,462.05.
Second?
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. 5-0.
I move the committee approve warrant number 17, dated October 24th, 2019, in the amount of $357,376.69.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion approved, 5-0. Thank you. All right, and are we to policy? We only have one policy tonight. And it's the second reading of that new, kind of revised acceptable use of technology policy and guidelines. Does anybody have any additional questions? All right, I'll take a motion then when we're ready.
I take a motion to accept policy IJNDB, acceptable use of technology, policy and guidelines as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Okay, motion carried. All right, and thanks to the team that worked on this, putting it together. Yeah, please do. Yeah, you did a good job. Correspondence. So I did, as you all saw, put together quickly the later start time letter that went out in Jay's newsletter. I had several people reach out and just tell me how disappointed and sad they were. And one person just asked for some clarification, and so I sent him over the work that the subcommittee did, and I sent him over a piece of the discussion where we met, because it was very difficult for me to put all that work down into a brief snapshot. So I did the best I could, and I think I helped him understand that. And then I'm sure all of you also heard just anecdotally from people, but I did get a lot of texts. Dan, also, it's not officially, I guess, correspondence, but there was thanks to California and their progressively wonderful laws, there was a big discussion on a couple of Facebook groups over the weekend about our lunch policy. And, I know we did some great work a few years ago changing our lunch policy. It's work that I think we're pretty proud of. And I just was hoping maybe you could just give an update on explaining to the people what that is, what that means, and how children are affected.
Yeah, I think we've stayed kind of ahead of the curve, or pretty good shape in terms of that type of policy. It eliminated any kind of alternate lunch if a student had a negative balance, and we never turn away a first lunch to any student, which we did a couple years ago. Had a policy once they hit $15, they would not be able to get any lunch, or they'd
An alternate lunch.
be able to get an alternate lunch
A
instead.
cold lunch.
So we've eliminated that. The only time a lunch would be kind of rejected is if it's a second lunch and the student has a negative balance. So we always give a free first lunch. And students, if you have a negative balance, you can't get like a bag of chips or a specialty drink. Those additional items are only cash only, or if you have credit on your account. So, yeah, I think we're in good shape on that in terms of not turning away or giving alternate lunches for the first lunch. And then we've started the donation fund that I hope we can continue to get donations year after year to be able to sustain that, to help fund those families kind of in the gap where they don't qualify for free and reduced, but struggle to afford lunch and other costs.
Dan, just for people who are listening, if somebody wants to donate to that, and I'm sure there are people who do, how do they do that?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is if you go to www.graftonps.org/donate. There'll be a description of the fund, and then all the different ways that they could contribute, either online or send in a check.
And then just to clarify, when you say free first lunch, you don't mean that they get to do that one time and then the next day. You're saying
Yeah,
they
it's
can't
every
buy
day.
2 lunches in one day.
Yeah, 2 lunches in 1 days. Just the second lunch they need to pay cash for or have a balance on their account.
Does it include breakfast also?
Yeah, we don't run into much issue with breakfast, but I'm not sure if anybody ever tries to get a second breakfast, but
No, but I meant like the breakfast at the same.
yeah, there's no
price.
alternate meal for
For the first-
breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the California piece that you were
I
talking
think
about.
California introduced a bill that everybody gets free, they just have free lunch in school, so
Okay.
it's like,
Got it.
you know, what would my dream would be,
Right.
right?
California also
Did later
mandated
start
later
times, I
start
know.
time.
Right
Which-
after,
But it was really interesting. I know it
I'm
happened like
starting to think California's out together.
well, except yeah, but then
except
I
that
was
you're gonna
like,
lose your
how are the
electricity.
districts going to deal with that? Like, what? I'm really curious to see how that's going to
Yeah.
unfold. If it's mandated, then does everybody have to drum up that money?
Yes.
Unfunded
Unfunded.
mandates, our best friend.
Exactly, but the problem is that, it's a really old trope, there's no such thing as free lunch.
Well, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say that,
Yeah.
so that's the piece
Somebody
where,
pays somewhere.
I'm not sure if people, you know, understand that we still have to cover the cost. We definitely don't want it to be on the kid who's trying to buy
Right.
lunch, and we wanna do right by the child. But again, we still have to cover, and we're not, obviously, we don't have we don't have that extra fund. So that's why we're so grateful for everyone who has, you know, participated in the donations. And, you know, I know the class of 2019, I think they put a lot of the rest of their activity fund or made a big donation to
that's
it, which is
nice.
wonderful. I've seen local businesses around town. I go to, I don't know if I'm allowed to do, I go to a dance studio in town, and they're doing a shoe sale, and all the, you know, people can choose if they want the donation from their shoes to go to our fund. So we're very grateful to that, but it's not free. And
Right. And if families do want to take advantage to get financial assistance, they can email or call me.
thank you.
So
Yeah, I know it's a passion of yours, and I know you're doing such a great job on it, Dan, and I appreciate it. I just wanted an update because you know, California, who knows, tomorrow they'll come up with, I don't know, there'll be no fees for sports or anything ever.
The state will fully fund every
Yeah.
district. That's
Yeah.
what'll happen.
Great. Okay. And we did have a lot of correspondence. As promised, I did write a letter to Representative Meridian. I forwarded it to you. I know they came out with, I know they're taking it on tomorrow. They came out, I guess, with new revised numbers. I haven't seen them.
They're not released yet, I think they're tentative. We did
Okay.
see them, to get like a peek at them.
Yeah. And then Representative Meridian did come back to me after, and he's like, well, does Grafton support the bill as written? And I didn't know what to say. In my letter, I pretty much said that why we appreciate the effort and we think it's important. We're not really seeing the benefits. So as a representative for this town, it's hard for me to say, yes, I support it. As a representative for public education, yes, I support it. So I didn't answer, so.
Yeah, I felt the same way. He asked me the same question.
That's a
and
fair response, if you
Yeah.
actually said.
as you know, as a parent and knowing kids in other communities that are going to benefit from this, I think it's great. But as the parent of children in this community, it's not great. It's not going to help us really very much at all, which is disappointing.
It's very disappointing. So, okay. That was it for me on correspondence. We do not need to go into executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? All right, good night, everybody.